Some people just refuse to live a peaceful life. And one of such people was a young farmer from New Zealand, Alan Deere. "Where's my Spitfire? I want to be a pilot." The Royal Air Force was happy to see volunteers, especially once World War II began. This New Zealander had all chances to become part of those pilots in the Battle of Britain that Churchill dedicated his famous speech to. "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." But his career wasn't the luckiest one. Or was it? It depends on what you define as luck. In May 1940, Deere encountered his first emergency. His Spitfire's oxygen supply system malfunctioned during a high-altitude patrol mission. When it happens at 8,000, the pilot usually loses consciousness and needs to be revived on the ground. Provided there's someone who can land the plane, that is. For a single-seat fighter, however, it meant certain death. Meanwhile, Deere managed to come back to his senses and make an impossible last-second save, pulling out of a dive dangerously close to the sea surface. The news of this situation quickly spread in the Royal Air Force, and Alan Deere became famous as an exceptionally lucky guy. Little did they know. Later, in the same May of 1940, the month when Deere achieved the rank of a flying ace, an even more incredible thing happened to him. He was chasing a German Dornier 17 and destroyed both of its engines, but received heavy damage himself. A machine gun volley went through his Spitfire's cooling system, forcing him to make an emergency landing, right into the German-occupied part of Belgium. You'd think he was immediately captured? Fat chance. Injured Deere was rescued by British soldiers who accompanied him to Dunkirk, where he hitched a ride during the famous evacuation of the Allied forces. He got back to his squadron a couple of days later, only to find out he'd been regarded as MIA, missing in action. Was that all? Not even close. In June, Alan Deere fought 2 Bf-109s, shot down one and rammed the other, damaging his own fighter heavily. Again. His prop was bent, one aileron was missing, rudder controls were damaged, and worst of all, the engine was dead. The fighter was basically torn apart during an emergency landing, while Deere bruised his knee, got an aspirin from a doctor in the nearest village, and made it back on his own. As soon as on August the 12th his next Spitfire was hit so badly, even an emergency landing wasn't an option. He had a parachute, of course, but the altitude was too low. No time for it to open. Deere risked it anyway, and the chute didn't open. Miraculously, he managed to get away with sprains and scratches. It sounds ridiculous, but in 3 weeks he had to leave his plane at a low altitude again, and he pulled it off successfully the second time too. The weirdest situation happened on the last day of August. Alan Deere's Spitfire got hit by an air raid while preparing for takeoff. A direct hit of a bomb shredded his poor fighter to pieces. The fire lit the skies, but Alan Deere, you guessed it, was unharmed. When they pulled him out, he said, "Those Germans have no notion of decency." Looks like that was the moment when everyone realized that Alan Deere was, in fact, a cat. How else could you explain him having so many lives? He was banned from flying and sent to do some paperwork, allegedly because he needed some rest after so many near-fatal incidents. Deere, however, wanted none of it, and managed to win back his right to fly by May 1941, where he soon demonstrated his invincibility one more time. Then his Spitfire's engine died soon after taking off. The plane was full of fuel, at a low altitude, at a low speed, with landing gear retracted. and the airstrip was already behind. One small spark during the landing could explode the whole machine, but not for Alan. He crashed his plane, and the gasoline did spill out, but never combusted. Alan Deere, a flying ace with at least 22 confirmed victories, continued flying through the entire war. He only retired in 1967, finally having a peaceful life. And when the news of his passing came in 1995, his old fellows and chums were probably perplexed. What about his other 3 lives?